As the world watched this seismic shift in global power dynamics unfolded, Trump's administration's decision to suspend aid funding sent shockwaves across international relations, leaving a void that China was paused to fill. With the U.S. Agency for International Development halted, countries may increasingly rely on Chinese financing options like the Belt and Road Initiative. This could lead to greater economic dependency and strategic leverage for China. As the U.S. steps back from its traditional role in international development, will this decision ultimately cement China's position as a dominant global power? Welcome to Think Tank.
Donald Trump is his name, and he's there to stay.
As unlikely, impossible, is now reality.
We will make America powerful. We will win, win, win. Will make America great again. Let's do our We will very quickly make America great again.
China has granted $4.4 million to Cambodia's landmine elimination project, stepping in after the United States paused aid to the mining operations. According to Newsweek, the freeze in U.S. aid payments due to the Trump administration's foreign aid cuts led to a temporary halt in Cambodia's mine clearing efforts. The Chinese grant will support the Cambodian Mine Action Center's operations across 7 provinces for another year, aiding over 400 technical experts. Cambodia, a key Chinese ally, faces significant challenges with unexploded ordnance from past conflicts. Critics argue that the U.S. aid suspension could allow China to expand its influence, with Cambodia's government highlighting the importance of international support for mine clearance. The Eurasian Times has reported that in a significant shift in U.S. foreign policy, Donald Trump's new doctrine ties American aid to strategic returns, especially focusing on Ukraine's critical mineral resources. Trump asserts that U.S. assistance will no longer be unconditional in American security in exchange for support. Ukraine, rich in rare earth mineral essential for defense and high-tech industries, offers an alternative to U.S. dependence on China. Trump's plan aims to secure these resources, positioning Ukraine as a key player against China's dominance in the rare earth market. This new approach marks a departure from traditional U.S. diplomacy to make it a priority to economic resilience and security over ideological support, signaling the rise of realpolitik in global relations.
The recent suspension of aid funding by the Trump administration has created a significant void in China with a golden opportunity to enhance its global influence. The U.S. Agency for International Development, which has been instrumental in delivering billions of dollars in foreign aid since its inception in 1961, is now facing severe disruptions. This move not only halts critical humanitarian and development projects, but also undermines the United States' ability to counterbalance China's expanding geopolitical ambitions. USAID's role in countering Chinese influence cannot be overstated. It has provided billions in development aid, fostering governance and economic autonomy, while serving as a counterweight to China's Belt and Road Initiative. Launched in 2013, the Belt and Road Initiative is a geopolitical strategy that embeds China within economies through infrastructure loans, often resulting to strategic leverage over recipient nations. With USAID out of the picture, countries may turn exclusively to Chinese financing options, which can compromise their sovereignty. This strategic shift under Trump's America First agenda allows China to fill the vacuum left by USAID and strengthen its economic dominance globally, particularly in Southeast Asia. In summary, Trump's decision effectively hands over significant geopolitical ground to China. As the U.S. steps back from international leadership roles traditionally filled by agencies like USAID, it risks relinquishing strategic advantages that have historically maintained global stability. This move represents a profound transformation in America's global stance, at a time when maintaining influence is crucial against rising competitors like China.
The Trump administration's decision to suspend aid funding has sparked concerns about the catastrophic humanitarian consequences and a strategic boon for Beijing's global ambitions. How will this shift impact the balance of global influence? And to tackle this issue, joining us today are Ihsan Al-Khatib, a political science professor from Kentucky, and Professor Inar Tanjin, a senior fellow at the Institute and chairman of Asian Narratives. Welcome, sir, to the program, and it's a pleasure to have you both with us today. Professor Khatib, how does the suspension of U.S. aid affect global perceptions of American leadership?
The issue with what's going on now is that Trump ran on an agenda of fighting waste, fraud, and abuse. And there is an impression that American money, taxpayer money, is being spent in unwise ways. And one of the agencies that has been wasting taxpayer money is USAID. Now, this is temporary, but it's a shock and awe kind of style of dealing with the issue, and it is causing disruption.
Sir, Mr. Ihsan, I'm very sorry to interrupt you in this context, but are you convinced that the U.S. aid was wasting money from your own narrative, sir?
Yes, let me give you an example of ways that the money was
So you're
spent.
pro what Trump did?
The idea that in the Republican circles, conservative circles, that this agency wastes American money and spends money in ways that American people do not want to spend. That's not the goal of aid development. People think, oh, it's going to health, medicine, food. But look at some of these programs that they're criticizing. Money spent on electric vehicles in Vietnam, transgender clinic in India. A Serbian LGBTQ group got $1.5 million. Money for advancing DEI in Serbia. So all these, this is not aiding. This is medicine. This is not medicine. This is not food. And Rubio, but the Secretary of State Rubio gave a waiver. Actually said you can apply for a waiver for cases where, and I want to be accurate with you. So here it said any life-saving humanitarian assistance, core life-saving medicine, medical services, food, shelter, subsistence, they can file for a waiver from the 90-day freeze. So the issue is the values. You see, the Trump won, and Trump has an agenda. He's implementing it. Now, the way they're doing it is really hard and causing chaos. But the question is not just not giving anything, not letting just China do whatever it wants and have the field for itself. But the issue is what kind of programs and what kind of role does the Secretary of State have? Because the law says that the Secretary of State supervises USAID, but the politicians are saying that this agency has not been responsive to the political demands of that the spending should be aligned with American national interests. Every American, probably, if you ask them, they say, yeah, let's fight famine and disease, but should American taxpayer money be spent on DEI initiatives in Serbia or on transgender issues? So that's the divisive issues. It's a culture war in the U.S. and it's transferring to how money is spent overseas.
Well, Professor Einar, what opportunities does this create for China to expand its Belt and Road Initiative, which we, of course, to our knowledge, all know that's one of the most important initiatives on the scene as we witness what's going on nowadays, sir?
Well, I think you have to kind of parse out the narrative here on a couple of points. First off, the Belt and Road Initiative has nothing to do with USAID. It's not competing for any kind of gender studies or neutrality or any of those issues. It simply builds infrastructure, and that infrastructure has helped countries around the world expand their economic base, and you can see that quite clearly by their GDP growth over these last few years. So yes, the U.S. always likes to say that there's somehow China is seizing hold of these countries. Well, if that's the case, what is the U.S. doing about it? And USAID, as I said, had nothing to do with it. Now, in terms of the organization USAID and how it spends its money, that is up to Congress. It is not up to the executive. So this suspension will be litigated. It's probably that it will go on the side of Congress, and then Congress can make a decision. Remember, it's a majority of Republicans in both House and Senate should be determining how that money is spent. You just
Professor
can't have
Einar,
one person.
What I understood here is that the Belt and Road Initiative is not related to the shutdown of the U.S. aid from your own narrative, sir?
Well, of course it's not. I mean, the USAID, as my fellow pointed out, is a political issue within the United States. It's a battle between the executive and the legislative, and that will be settled there. But it has nothing to do with the BRI. China has primary trade relations with 140 countries. That has nothing to do with USAID, except to the extent that USAID was acting as a front for clandestine activities, whether it was regime change or just disinformation. That has been shown. But that is a domestic issue within the United States, and that's where it has to be done. This trying to draw parallels that somehow USAID and the Belt and Road Initiative are in competition is nonsense. USAID doesn't build bridges, they don't build ports, they don't build railways. They give out medicines and, in some cases, provide actionable intelligence.
Financial aid, and they sponsor universities, and they do a lot, supposedly all around the world.
No, the Belt and Road Initiative does not Spanish. Well, why don't you tell me which universities that they're sponsoring through the Belt and Road Initiative? Belt and Road Initiative is about infrastructure.
No, sir. I was pointing out to the USAID. I was not pointing out to the Belt and Road Initiative. So, are you pro or against the shutting down of the USAID, sir?
Well, I'm against it where you have situations where they're providing vital aid. We talked about, you had a report about what was going on in trying to have mine clearing in Cambodia and Laos, areas where the U.S. left bombs behind. And I think they have a moral and legal duty to do something about that, where you have AIDS programs in Africa, which are going to put people at risk. Now, my fellow compatriot was saying, "Oh, well, you can apply for."
I just want to, Mr. Khatib, can you answer, please, Mr. Einar?
On what point?
On the point
I
that
agree
you're with the shutting down of the U.S. aid, and he's against the shutting down of the U.S. aid.
I think this is a harsh, blunt tool that's causing a lot of chaos. But from the secretary's point of
Did
view,
you see
he's
the
saying,
protests, sir, that are taking place in the United States of America?
yes, but again, don't put too much weight on protesting because you have 340 million people and 50 states. So that's a fraction, tiny fraction of the people that you see protesting. The main issue here is this. I think what the secretary is saying is that a waiver is available. These organizations can apply for a waiver if it's medical services, food, shelter, subsistence, medicine. So they can, but they actually what's going on is that they're refusing to for a waiver just to embarrass the administration. That's because that community, that nonprofit community, is there's a tight knit community. These people know each other and they have a certain mindset. The issue is that the government, Trump, Republicans, are not saying we don't want to spend money helping other people, but they're saying aligning the foreign policy goals with the aid giving. This aid is meant to promote American national interest. Does DEI promote American national interest? Does pottery classes in Morocco or whatever country in North Africa, does that promote American national interest? So that's the issue. The idea that you spend, it's like I give my neighbor money to help his family, and I find out he took a vacation to Miami. I spent the money. That's not what I give you the money for. I want you to buy food and rent. But then when I cut the aid for him, he can pay his rent.
Sir, do you see
So
that
that-
the
sir, you don't
aid
seem to
should be
understand
cut
anything.
in such a quick
not-
way and an instant way without, or should we, when we decide to cut something that's really important, we do it part by part, or we do it in a decent way?
Yeah, what they're saying is that it's a 90-day.
Answer, sir. Answer, Mr. Inar.
I think you have to be. These are humanitarian issues, and I'm not saying that there aren't parts of USAID that are problematic. But my colleagues doesn't seem to grasp what the law is. I'm a lawyer, all right? I was a politician. I understand these things. You cannot have the executive simply saying, I don't like it, so I'm going to change it. That's up to the legislature, all right? And if you don't understand that, you need to study ethics. So at this point, the way that they have acted is illegal, and it puts people at risk. Now, there are clandestine issues that I've mentioned before, but that is an internal issue that Congress has to decide, not unilaterally by the secretary. He supervises. He does not dictate. And this is, you might like that as an individual, but that's not the law.
True, sir.
Yes, but yeah. Do you want me to answer that?
Yes, please answer. Please answer.
Let me explain this to you. I'm a lawyer too, and what the idea is this: if they allocate the money for this agency to spend money, the kind of programs that they are spending the money on is the issue, not the fact that. So they give them $40 billion, but are they giving them the money for LGBTQ classes and for transgender clinic or for pottery classes? That is that the idea of foreign aid that helping fight disease and hunger? That's the issue. That's number one. Number two, there's the issue of freezing. They're saying, look, we're putting this program 90 days to review them to see if they're aligned with the goals. They're not saying we're canceling it now. Now closing, you're right. Closing U.S. aid, it requires an act of Congress. But saying I'm putting everything on hold, I'm reviewing what's going on with this money. If it's consistent with what the statute says, what the Congress intended, that's not illegal. That's arguably not illegal. Not canceling the programs. They're saying let's review, let's see where the money is going. So 90-day freeze is that should be arguably legal.
Arguably, obviously, you've never argued anything in court. The fact is, this is a legislative versus executive issue. If they wanted to do what you said, they should have identified the programs instead of shooting first and asking
Where is
people.
the identifying of the program, Mr. Hussein?
The other way he's making it personal. I practiced law for 10 years, and I did go to court more than one time. I'm telling you, there are lawyers on both sides. You see, the problem in this country, a lot of political fights end up to be legal fights. The question is, does the president have the authority to abolish an agency that the law established? Of course not. Does the president have authority to say, look, we're going to look at the spending and see if it's consistent with the law? I think he can. He can suspend the. He's not saying I'm not going to spend the money. He's saying let's look into this money spent and let's take 90 days reviewing. I don't think that's illegal. Now the judge will decide ultimately, but I think that you can make arguments on both sides. Abolishing the agency is definitely requires an act of Congress because it's established by an act of Congress. So I don't know why you're personalizing it if I've been to court or not. That's not the issue. Obviously, there is an argument. That's why if they take it to court, you have both sides with presenting their point.
Well, you've come late to the argument that there's illegal things. You were talking
We're not
earlier about how the
personalizing anything
secretary's
here,
intent.
but
I think
Mr.
that's
Inar,
important.
go on.
USAID has its issues, and it should be looked into. But the way you look into it is you have a thorough understanding of what is going into it. Now, Marco Rubio is no stranger to Capitol Hill. He's been there for quite some time. He had plenty of opportunity to go through with a fine-tooth comb exactly what USAID is doing. It's not like they just are handed money and said, do what you like. There is a congressional budget, and it's supposed to be followed. To the extent it is not being followed, all right, yes, he has the ability to say these are not prescribed uses, and therefore we can't do that. It's not following the law of Congress, but he does have lateral ability to do that, and that, yes, that will be decided in court. But it is not up to the president to decide whether things are in line with his vision of the world. That's why we have a three-part system. There's supposed to be a series of checks and balances, but the checkbook belongs to Congress, not to Donald Trump or his appointees.
Mr. Hussein, answer, please.
Yeah. Yes, I think we have two issues here, and we shouldn't be talking at each other. The point is this: does the president have the authority to abolish USAID? And the answer is no, because it's established by law. Yes, the has been set by the US Congress. They give, I think, $40 billion a year to USAID to spend. But the question is, what programs is this money spent on? Is that consistent with the law? What the administration is saying, not that we're just not gonna spend the money. What they're saying is we're freezing the spending. We're going to look into this money, how look into these programs. So they're not saying we're not going to spend the money, but there is nothing in the law that says you have to spend the money tomorrow or you have to spend the money next month. That's the argument. So it's not a frivolous argument. It's actually a valid argument. He executes the law. Now, how he goes about it, there's discretion for the executive branch. The executive branch saying we're looking into this, we're going to review this, and we're going to see with these programs if the money is spent aligned with what the Congress intended. They're not saying we're not going to spend the money. So I don't know why you're trying to make it. It's like there's no point to it. There is a point to it. There is an argument for it.
Certainly, there is an argument for everything, but the issue is people are going to die, all right, because they don't get their AIDS medicine, because they don't clear these mines, because they don't do what they're supposed to do in terms of providing medical relief and aid. So your idea that, oh, yeah, they can do that and we don't have to worry about the consequences. Well, Congress passed those laws and the amount of money that was appropriated to deal with the exact issue. They wanted to prevent deaths. So your idea that, 90 days doesn't matter, he can do that. Maybe he can do it for another 90 days, keep suspending it ad hoc for as long as he wants. That is not the intent of Congress. If there's a specific program that is off the rails, absolutely, he can go in and say, this is not what Congress intended, and therefore I am saying we're not going to spend the money. That's fine. But you just don't throw the baby out with the bathwater simply because you're trying to make a political point.
The issue is, does the president have the authority to suspend
the issue? You keep arguing this issue about the president and supervisory authority. He does, but he does not have the right to do blanket closures of entities. And your argument that there's somehow a humanitarian anything about this, given that he's withdrawn from the WHO, withdrawn from the Paris Climate Accord. I mean, there's absolutely nothing that Donald Trump feels
what remains
about
for
anybody.
Donald Trump that he hasn't withdrawn from yet?
What see, we don't want to mix apples and oranges. That's politics. This is elections. Elections have consequences, and he has the president made decisions. But I want to go back.
Mr. Hassani did not answer my question. What
Yeah,
remained
no,
that Donald Trump did not withdraw from yet?
Yeah, he can make a decision to withdraw. If it's an executive decision to get in, it's an executive decision to get out. So that should
To
be
get out of
part of.
everything?
Well, I mean, if the law allows it, I mean, again, elections have consequences. He's not an internationalist. He's not a globalist. If he thinks that it doesn't serve American national interests, then he's going to withdraw from it. That's. I don't see that as a problem. But I want to go back to the idea that people are dying because of this decision. I just read for you that Marco Rubio issued a waiver to cover life-saving humanitarian assistance that includes core life-saving medicine, medical services, food, shelter, and subsistence assistance. There is a waiver during the 90 days. So I don't know why you're making it like people are dying left and right.
Professor Tanjin, can you answer him, please? Because I have to wrap up the program now.
Okay. So the issue about applying for a waiver, it has to be heard. There's been many waivers that were put forward. Your assertion that you somehow know the inner workings of USAID and that they're deliberately, going to forego getting waivers so that more people die so they can embarrass Donald Trump, I think is presumptuous. Unless you want to produce some sort of evidence, that is a smear. So be careful about what you claim and you say.
Thank you very much.
Mark Rubio said that they haven't been applying for waivers. I didn't say that. I said that.
Yes, you did, sir. Go back and listen to your own comments.
The secretary said that they haven't been filing for waivers. So he wondered if they don't know how to do the work. They don't know how to file for a waiver. I think that it's not a slam dunk issue. The issue of closing the agency is definitely not within the power of President Trump. But I think that the freeze and the looking into the spending, saying I need 90 days to look into it is perfectly legal. I don't think it's an issue.
Your final words, Mr. Inar?
Well, if you don't think humanitarian aid is an issue, that is up to you. I think in future elections, there'll be some other ideas about that.
That was Ihsan Al-Khatib, a political science professor, and Professor Inar Tanjin, of course, chairman of Asia Narratives. Of course, I would love to continue this debate, but unfortunately, I'm out of time. Thank you very much for your valuable knowledge and informative knowledge. And this brings us to the end of today's episode of Think Tank. Thank you very much for watching and stay tuned for more coming up here on Q News.